Hello there. Hope you're doing great. Let's talk about recording ourselves today. First thing, I want to make sure that you catch episode 162 of the Mind Over Finger podcast. It's available here on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts. But in that episode, I give you a no excuse technique to record yourself. So make sure to catch this episode and then get back here for this little additional content to help you with that. So recording ourselves. Why is it so helpful? Many reasons, but I think that the two main ones that I'll go with right now is that, number one, it really helps us know what is. So not what we think is happening, not where we think the problems are, but where they actually are. So it tells us what is. It's a really great barometer of reality. And then number two is that it creates a really strong mind-body connection, especially when you use this technique, because the technique I teach you has a very rapid succession of playing, listening, and playing again. And this really helps strengthen that mind-body connection. And then you can apply the insight that you get from this technique to everything else that you practice, which saves you a lot of time. A third reason, which I guess I could include here too, is that it's excellent performing practice. What better way to press record, start playing, and perform than to practice performing? So in the episode, the technique I shared with you, I call record, reflect, refine. And it's very easy, right? No excuse not to do it. One chunk performed 3 times. That's it. One chunk performed 3 times. So how you do it is you pick a chunk. And again, I'm assuming that you've listened to the episode, and I'm just going to give you the general idea of what I explained at length in the episode. You pick a short chunk, 1 phrase or 2, but no more than 30 seconds, because we want that to be very easy to manage. And we want to also have this rapid succession that I was talking about. And also we want no excuse not to do it. So a short chunk, and then you perform it. So you really embody your inner performer as you play it. You turn on the spotlight and that's it. It's a performance. So there goes your performance practice. And then you listen back. So 1 chunk performed, you listen back. So that's the record part. And then we're going to reflect. As you listen back, pay attention to 2 things. Number 1, what you like about it. Very important to notice what is going right. We're trying to be really, really objective. And the main reason people hate recording themselves is that they start to hate on themselves and they only hear the things that are not going the way that they want. And they start to get perfectionists and they weave in all of this self-hate and this frustration into the mix, which conditions you to perform with fear. That's a whole other topic, but recording yourself with a very hard heart as you're listening or hard ears conditions you to perform with fear. So be mindful of that. So pay attention to the things that you like about the recording, the things that are going well. And then you notice 1 or 2 things that you could apply right away. So maybe the intonation's a little bit off, maybe the tempo, maybe it's rushing, maybe it's slowing down. I'll give you an example real quick about that. And then what you're going to do is press record and perform it right away with no practice in between takes. And you try to implement the things that you've just noticed. So no practice between the takes. So record, reflect, and then refine. The refined part becomes your second recording or third recording. So you record it, you listen back, and then you record right away. No practice between the takes, right? Easy to implement, no excuse. And because it's less than 30 seconds, when you do it 3 times, it's going to take less than 2 minutes. So let me give you an example of why that works really well. So you record, listen, perform. Listen, okay, you notice a couple more things, and then you perform it again, and then you listen again. And then we stop. And I'll get to why we stop in a second. But if, let's say, the one thing you notice is that it's slightly rushing, it's rushing a little bit, Even though when you performed it the first time, it felt as though you were holding back the tempo. You were trying to be steady. When you listen to it, it still feels slightly rushed. So you play the first time, then you listen back, you notice it's slightly rushing. Okay, we're going to implement right away. So you perform it again with this attention to the fact that you're holding steady, right? So heightened awareness. One of the best things about recording yourself. So your awareness is at its peak. Then you listen back and you're like, wow, like I really felt like I was holding back, but it's still rushing. Crazy. It felt like I was really steady. Still sounds like I'm rushing. And then you record it another time. And this time, as you're playing, go like this because I play violin. As you're playing, it feels as though you're holding back. It feels way too slow. It feels like you're actually slowing down. Feels strange. But when you listen again, it sounds great. Great flow, but steady. And this is where your brain understands that steady feels like that. This is what steady feels like. I have this perception that I'm slowing down, but this is actually what steady feels like. And this is where this mind-body connection is made very vivid for us, is that a lot of times things don't feel the way they sound to us. Don't forget that when we're performing, when we're playing, we're very busy. We're doing stuff. Our perception of what's happening in real time is altered by all of this activity, all of the things that we are doing. Think about all of the things your brain is monitoring as you're playing. So what we want to be able to do is have a knowing of what things feel like. So if you know what steady feels like, anytime a similar passage comes back, you'll know how to play it steadily because you know how steady feels like. You're not just playing and thinking you're steady, you know what steady feels like. So this is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons why this technique is so powerful, is that it not only shows you what is, it shows you what it feels like to sound the way you want. How amazing is that? It shows you how it feels like to play the way you want. Incredible. Now let's get to the reason as to why I say one chunk perform 3 times. So again, short, and the performing part is important because we're playing our best, we're practicing performing. Why 3 times? It's because we're perfectionists. And what happens when we're trying to record a passage until it's great, we could be there all day. Another reason not to do it. I don't have time to record myself. It takes too long. Not true. Record, reflect, refine. One chunk, perform 3 times. No excuse, right? But this perfectionism actually fires back because, as I told you earlier, it weaves in fear. It weaves in frustration. That perfectionism, it weaves in physical tension, mental tension, excessive thinking, all of this. So if you let yourself go, it's like if you fall into this trap of recording yourself until it's perfect, you're going to weave in all of this negative conditioning in your playing. So one chunk, perform 3 times, unless this is the only time you have my permission to play it more than 3 times, unless it feels amazing. If it feels great, if you're happy, and I say this in the episode, but I'm going to say it again because it's so important. If it feels amazing, if you're having fun, if it's interesting, if you feel like you're on the verge of something, and your overall feeling about the experience is positive, you can keep going. Absolutely, as long as you want. But the second a negative feeling comes in, you must stop the experiment immediately. No negative conditioning. So it's fun, it's interesting, It's rewarding. It's exciting. Keep going. If you hear a negative voice, if you feel physical tension, if you start to have spiraling thoughts, that's it. You're done. 3 times, also think about it. First, it gives you no excuse to not do it because it takes less than 2 minutes to do the whole thing from start to finish. But also, you do excellent work in 3 times. It's enough to get excellent work done. And then you move on to other things, which is wonderful too, because that gives you the opportunity to practice spaced repetition or interleave practice, all of these beautiful things. So 1 chunk, perform 3 times, record, reflect, refine. And then you move on to either recording another passage if you want to, or you just go back to what you were doing before, or you move on to other things. So with clients, what I recommend is to get really creative with how you use record, reflect, refine. As I said in the episode, start it as early as you want in the process, even if you just started learning a passage, because recording yourself gives you a more objective view of what you're playing. If you start doing it early on in the process, you're not going to be practicing the wrong thing. You're going to be practicing reality, because as you listen back, you'll hear where the real issues are, not where you think they are. You're going to operate from data, from information, from knowledge, not just from assumptions and guessing. And remember, our perception of our playing is warped by the act of playing itself. So recording is very helpful. And I say recording, could be video as well. So that's one great thing. So we want to keep it brief, so it's easy to do. One of my favorite quote is by Gretchen Rubin: make it easy to do right and hard to go wrong. So make it brief. And then the other advantage of this is that, so another way to practice it, rather, is you could set a timer that goes off every 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and you practice it. You do a record, reflect, refine. You could decide that you're going to record 1 chunk at the beginning of a session or at the end of a session or so many times a session, but stay realistic. If you tell yourself you're going to record 10 chunks per session, it's too much. So make it easy to do right and hard to go wrong by having really realistic expectations. But challenge yourself to record 1 chunk per session. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to find that you progress so much faster, so much faster. You're going to save so much time by doing that. Because once you do it with 1 passage, it will impact the rest of the session. It will impact all of the other segments. And the reason is because this raises in awareness that you're going to have. What you hear, what you feel will be different when you start to record yourself. And the last thing I want to say about this, no excuse, no excuse. And this I did not mention in the podcast. So have the easiest setup possible to do this. So if you love tech and you have a great setup and it's easy for you, by all means, use an excellent mic with very fancy recording machine or video. Video is great. I love video for sure. But for me, I know that my phone is what it is. I don't have the desire to set up recording equipment. I want the easiest thing that will be a no-brainer, no excuse not to do it, because it takes 0 time to set it up. 0 time. So make it easy to do right, hard to go wrong. Use your phone. I use the recording app, the memo app, voice memo app on my phone, or I use the video version, which is really great because then you also get a visual. But don't only do one or the other. If you only do video, you start to rely too much on your eyes, and you do only audio, you don't get the visual feedback. So do a mix of both. Another app that I really like for this is Tunable. Tunable is my favorite practice metronome tuner app. And I find that the recording function works really well. You can play back slower, you can play back faster. Now, I don't use that for record, reflect, refine, but I use that for other recording techniques, which I talk about with my clients and my different coaching programs, of course, and my one-on-one clients. And maybe I'll do an episode on those also in the future. We'll see. But Tunable is really great. And then lastly is Modacity. So if you're a subscriber of Modacity, which is a mindful practice app, really great app. I like this one too. Modacity is only audio, but one great thing about it is that you can, you don't have to do anything between the takes. They get automatically deleted unless you save it. So if you don't want to have, you want to make it even easier and you don't have to go manually delete all of your little recordings after the practice session, you can use Modacity. So most of the time I use my video or the memo app on my phone, Tunable if it's on, and Modacity is also a really great one to use. So I hope this is helpful. No excuse not to record yourself. Do it every session. One chunk, less than 30 seconds, performed 3 times. Record, reflect, refine. And if it's less than 30 seconds, even with the listen back and the reflection time, because remember, we listen back, we make mental notes, we can make tiny little markings in the part. I talk about that in the episode, but we perform right away. No practice between takes. Take you about 2 minutes. 3 at most. So no excuse. I hope this is helpful. You can find everything at mindoverfinger.com, the podcast again here on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And make sure to visit the website often for all of the fun workshops I have going on, all the coaching programs, how to work with me, all of that good stuff. All right. Have a great week. See you soon.